Once, so long ago that most have forgotten, each Habilus had a thought, a true thought. For the first time, she became aware of herself as being other than her surroundings. This was the first communication. It was an interior dialogue, what we know now as being intrapersonal communication. Well, at first, Habilus was fearful and unsure of her new power, and she tried to forget it, but soon the urge to share, to communicate, became too strong. And she tried using her throat to make a sound that closely resembled the sound she heard in her head. When she thought she had it correct, she found another of her species. She made that sound. She listened. No response. She found another person. Made the sound, listened. No response. She tried that several times, but soon she realized that the sound she was making was very much like the shrieks and bellows that she heard around her, and she gave up. But little did she realize that other members of her species were also having interior dialogues. Occasionally they would try to share, but failure. After a time, H. Habilus's descendant, H. erectus, had the urge to rear up on his hind legs and stand upright. Well, no one had ever done that before, but he was determined. So he gathered up all his determination and raised his four paws off the ground. But soon he fell back. He tried again, reared back, slowly but failed. He tried this many times. Finally, he gathered all his determination to try one last time. And he lifted his four paws off the ground. He shifted his weight and his balance, and finally he was standing upright. While others around him saw him and tried to mimic him. Some failed. Some succeeded. Soon, many were standing. Well, the erectus species, not having to use its forepaws, or what we now know as hands, to walk, began to experiment with other uses. Well, they would pick up, they would touch and pick up objects, and they would soon try to manipulate these objects, the larger rocks and sticks. And these large rocks and sticks they would use to dig, or as weapons to hunt, or to protect themselves. And finally, the tools continued to grow larger, and the jobs continued to grow larger, and they needed more people. Well, the use of the tools, the community, caused the Erectus clan's brain to expand. Well, as their brain grew larger, their territory seemed to grow smaller, and some of them began to wonder what might be over on the other side of that hill, or what might be beyond that stand of trees. Soon many were exploring, and others followed. And finally, the Erectus clan moved up out of Africa, where it had all begun. And some went northeast into the Orient and Asia. Some went northwest into Europe. And the change in geography led to access to more food, more fruits, nuts, and fish that they had not before been able to have. And these nutrients, again, caused their brains to expand. After a while, a particular erectus decided to use all his determination, all his concentration, everything that his ancestor had used to stand up and walk, to communicate, to share. Again, like his ancestor, he experimented with sounds and gestures. Finally, he felt he was ready. He went to a group. He made the sound. He made the gestures. He listened. Heard nothing. He tried again, made the sound, listened, heard nothing. He tried this countless times until finally he was ready to give up. But he decided to give it one last try, gathering all his determination, all his concentration. He made the sound. He listened. And he heard. In the March 2014 issue of Smithsonian Magazine, there is an article that describes the research that scientists at the Max Planck Institute of Psycholinguistics in the Netherlands have done. This study finds that there is one sound, one word, that is used and has been used in practically every language known to man. That word is huh? So, there was the erectus, the source, sending out a message. There was his companion, received the message, responded, asked for further information. That is interpersonal communication, sharing of ideas. Well, this first communication was very primitive, but after a time it grew more complex and sophisticated. Soon they were sharing more than just their work. They were sharing the experiences they had during the day, talking about what happened on the hunt or on the gathering became current events. Stories about their ancestors or the exploits of the tribe became history. Discussions about what they had found on their excursions and how to get to these places became geography. And when they were sitting by the fire at night in a thunderstorm, and they saw that flash of light go across the sky, some would say, that's the thunder god throwing his lance of light across the sky. Others would speculate that there must be something, some element in nature that would explain that. So from one experience grew religion and science. Science you think of as being not very full of stories. They're generally statistics and facts and figures. But if you think about it, a theory is a scientific method. And a theory is basically a story that predicts occurrences. In fact, in our course, we'll be talking about Walter Fisher, Dr. Walter Fisher. And he talked a lot about narratives, and he came up with an idea called the narrative paradigm. All important information is a form of storytelling. That is a theory. That is his theory. That is his story. Albert Einstein, probably the greatest physicist the world has ever known, used stories to help him figure out the universe. He used what he called mind experiments, but basically they were stories that he told himself to help organize his ideas and his thoughts about the world. E equals mc squared. A story. Could be a journey story. It is an origin story. Could be a love story. Matter and energy clenched in a timeless sort of caress until a flash. And then what happens? Well, stay tuned. The story continues